Welcome to C Programming Tutorials. In today's tutorial we are going to learn about how to return a value from a function. Okay, so far what we learned in the previous tutorial is how to declare a function. First we basically saw how to just declare a function without passing any arguments to it, and second we saw how to pass arguments to it, and now we are going to see how to return values from a function. So or if you would like to become a fan of the page Awesome C Programming Tutorials in High Def on Facebook, you could do that too. And if you could provide me any feedback, please leave some comments or something. That would be really nice. Or if you like those tutorials, please do a thumbs up on them. So let's get started. So in the previous tutorial, we wrote a small piece of code which basically add two, a function that takes two parameters or arguments and basically add them together and prints the result. Okay, so this did not. What it did, these, as we saw before, the arguments are basically like input to a function. So these A and B are actually input to that function. Now it is possible to basically return a result from the function. Here we did compute a result. We computed a result by adding these two numbers together. Okay, but all we did was we printed that result out on the screen and we just exited out of the function. Okay, returned back from the function. Okay, we did not pass this value back to the caller. Okay, so this is called returning the value, and it's like output of the function. Okay, so function did something. Sometimes function needs to send some values back to the caller, which is the result of executing that function. Okay, and that's what we are going to learn here. So let me take this out. Okay. And here, the way we are telling this to the compiler that this function is not returning any value back is by writing void. And as you remember, in the syntax of the function declaration, this is where you put the type of the value that you are going to return out of that function. Okay, if it is not returning any function, any return value, then you write void. Otherwise, you write int or character or char or whatever, float or all these kind of things. You can even return a pointer if you want to, but let's not worry about pointers right now. Let's see how in this, and let's do a simple example. Okay, what would be the example? It's very simple. Let's do this example. Let's write a function which basically calculates the square of a number. Okay, so you could add, multiply, subtract using operators like plus, minus, s. You could do a plus b. You could do a minus b. Minus b. You could do a multiplied by b like this. You could do a divided by b like this. But you cannot do square of a in C. Okay, just by using an operator. So let's write a function that will do it for us. Okay, so what would the function look like? It will have some return type. Okay, and we were going to worry about it a little later. And the name of the function, what would be the name of the function? Whatever it does. What does it do? It squares numbers. So let's write the name as a square. Okay, and what does it do? What would be the arguments? Would there be any arguments? Yes, no, yes. Okay, there will be an argument. What will be the argument? Again, to find out what the argument should be, you think of yourself as that function. Okay, if you are a function that does square of a number, what would you need as the input? A number. Okay, an integer that you will be basically operating on it. So let's write int x. All right. And what would be the return type? Return type is the type of the value that you are going to return. So what are you going to do with this x? Okay, what are you going to do with this x? You are going to compute the square of x. And what is the type of x? X is integer. The square of that integer would also be an integer, right? So the type of the value that it's going to return back is int. So we will write this int square of int x. Okay, and this is what we are going to do to basically compute to define the function. So how would it look like? This is how it's going to look like. We will basically get the result of squaring the x. And how do you square x? How do you square any number? You basically multiply that number with that number, right? So x multiplied by x. This will do it. This will compute the square. So this is going to be our result. Okay? And remember, x, the type of x is defined here, but type of result needs to be defined also. So what do we need to do? We need to define the type of the result. Okay, what would be the type of the result? Integer, because squaring the number would basically result in an integer. All right. So and then what do we do? Now we have the result in the variable result. We need to return it back to the caller. Okay, we are not going to print it out or anything. We are just going to return this value back to the caller, and we'll let the caller decide what to do with that. Caller might do multiplied by 2, multiplied by 6, divided by 5, whatever it has to do, or it just simply prints out. So we'll leave it up to the caller what to do. Okay, so but what we have to do, we have to tell the compiler to return this value to the caller, and for that you use the keyword return. Okay, this keyword, always you have to use this keyword in every function that has a type other than void. Okay, so far all our functions that we defined, they had type of void, so we did not have this statement return. But if you have a function that returns any other type other than void, then you have to return. And what do you have to return? After return, you have to basically write the variable name. And what is the variable name, or of the value of which you want to return back? It's the result. So we are going to say return result. So whatever we computed in this statement, we will basically be taking that value and returning it by its name. This is called returning by name. So we will be returning it by its name, square. And how are we going to use it? Okay, how are we going to use it? This is how we are going to use it. So suppose we have declared a variable int a. We could actually ask user to enter a number. Yeah, we could do that too. Okay, so suppose we declared it like this, int a equal to 2. Okay, then what can I do? I could basically say int x. Okay, and then I say x is equal to square, which is calling this function of x. Sorry, we have to pass the parameter. What is the parameter? A. Like this, right? So the value of a will be passed as the argument to this function. So the value of x here will become the value, whatever the value of a is. What is it? It's 2. So the 2 will be passed here, and in this function, value of x will be 2. Now don't confuse this x with this x. I intentionally gave the name of this variable as x. Sorry, I intentionally gave the variable name x here. This x is totally different from this x. In fact, this result is going to be totally different from if I declared a variable result here. Okay, there are two independent variables because they have different scope. What is the scope? Scope is the basically from here to here. This is the scope of this function. So anything declared inside this function is basically belongs to this function. From here to here is the scope of this function. So anything declared here is basically belongs to this function, and they are totally independent of each other. So let me stop here, and we'll continue it with the next video. Please don't forget to watch it. Thank you so much.